Welcome, everybody. Brian Kenny here. It's MLB Now, home edition, all day long on MLB Network. It's Yankee no-hitters and perfect games, and we have the perfect one with us right now, David Wells. David, it's Brian Kenny. Good to see you again. How are you?
Brian, I can't complain. Living in San Diego does not stink. You know, it's 72 and sunny. Golf courses are now open. Keep your distance. You walk 18, you get exercise. You know, it's pandemic can't be that bad, I guess, out here.
Excellent. I'm glad you're doing well. I want to jump into this because I even had to go back and look at like that game itself. The '98 Yankees. It's May. You guys are 27-9, but you did famously go out the night before, right? Can you give us a quick synopsis? Like you knew it was going to be a Sunday start, Beanie Baby Day, afternoon game. Where did you go? What did you do the night before?
Well, my dad brought my son in for my visitation that weekend. And so they got in Friday, and then Saturday they went to the game. We hung out, and then Saturday night we went to dinner, you know, right there on Tony's up on 84th and 83rd and 2nd. And so after that, Saturday Night Live was going on, and I usually went to all the shows when I was there. But, you know, I'm the guy that doesn't really go to bed early. So I just told my dad, I'm going to go to the show, and then I'll be right back after the show. But Marcy Klein kind of hoaxed me into going to the after party, and I didn't want to go. And I ended up going, which was, I guess, a mistake, but not a mistake, because I ended up hanging out with Jimmy Fallon and the cast, Horatio Sands and those guys. And one thing led to another, and we just started getting after it. And I think I left about 5:30, 6 in the morning. And and I was just like, oh boy, I'm in trouble, because my son woke me up at 8. So I only got a couple hours of sleep. And then I went to, I made him breakfast, got him in a cab because they had to go back to Florida. And I got to the point, and I went in the back room. I hid from everybody because, you know, I know David Cohen, he smelled me and he goes, oh boy, you better hide. So I didn't, I smelled like a brewery, so it was pretty bad. And so I just stayed in the masseuse room and just got my legs worked on and drank a lot of water, a lot of coffee, and prayed that I could at least keep the team in the game.
What's amazing is when you watch that game, like knowing that you seem so poised, like your off-speed stuff, David, like the way you commanded speed. Like, why do you think everything was clicking for you that day when you should have or were exhausted and spent?
Well, you didn't see the warm-up, the bullpen. The bullpen was so horrific. I was just like, oh, my God. And Audemars kept saying, Boomer, you're doing good. You're doing good. And I turned around like an idiot. And I'm like, don't patronize me, man. This is the worst bullpen I've ever had. I threw 2 balls out of the stadium that day. I was so pissed because my curveballs were 49 feet. Fastballs were everywhere, and I was just like, I just had nothing, no control in the bullpen. I ended up stopping my my routine short because I normally throw about 42 pitches in the bullpen. I bet you I threw 32, 34. And I said, Mel, this is about as good as it's going to get. Let's go. And I went from there into the dugout, went up to my locker, grabbed the water, went on the bench, and then went out there, and I was just like, the first pitch I threw was about 93, 94 right down the middle. I'm like, whoa, where'd that come from? And that's where it all began. I mean, I couldn't tell you because that bullpen was horrific.
Yeah, what does that tell us? Now, again, you pitched 21 years. You have 239 wins. You've probably tried everything, right, to maximize performance. But given that your perfect game, kind of like Don Larson's perfect game, he was out the night before. He didn't know he was pitching the next day and all that famously, and was, you know, thought he would be terrible. What does that tell us about performance? Like maybe getting out of our own head, or what does that teach us? Or what can we learn from that? Why you were so good that day when you shouldn't have been?
Well, I think you're a little more relaxed because you're not worried about the game. You're worried about how am I need to stay in this game. I need to keep the team in the game because if I don't, all hell's going to break loose. You know, if they found out that I went out the night before, stayed out all night, and then did that, I mean, you know the drill. You're going to get reprimanded. You probably get suspended. You're going to get fined. But, you know, in 97, I started, you know, I went out with David Cohn in 97. And actually it was right before when he came off his aneurysm. And he had a no-hitter going and Joe Torre pulled him.
Mhm.
Well, the night before we were at the hotel bar in Oakland and we had a few drinks and Coney went out and he had that going. Well, I had to pitch the next night after that. And I was just like, I'm beat from the night before. And so Coney's like, well, remember last night? I'm like, you're right. So we jumped in a limo, went to San Francisco, and we tied one on. I pitched the next day, and I think I threw a shutout or a complete game. And I'm like, well, that kind of works. So, you know, a superstitious guy, I started going out the night before I pitched, you know, not to get hammered, but, you know, have a few drinks and doing all that. And it worked.
Wow.
Don't ask me why, it worked.
What do you think, given now that we know that was, even with all those great Yankee teams, that was the apex, the 98 Yankees. Give us something maybe we don't know, besides a very deep team, you know, Jeter and Bernie are very young, the whole thing. Why do you think that Yankee team was so historically great?
Brian, it was right from the get-go. I mean, I think we lost the first 4 games. Joe Torre called a meeting. He wasn't very happy. He called a few guys out. I think he even called Jeter out. Jeter didn't like it, but it kind of gelled us as a team. But on the road, we all went to dinner. You know, there was no animosity going on in the clubhouse that I saw. You know, it was, and if it did, it was nipped in the bud. We were just such a unique group of guys that, you know, pulled from one another. There was no heroes on the team. We did our jobs, and that was the only thing that we, you know, was our main focus. But, you know, like you said, nothing ever got out of hand. And I've been on a lot of teams. I've been on 9 teams and 3 of them twice. But to be with a bunch of guys, you know, for, you know, 125 games, that's, and no animosity going on between anybody. That's pretty special. And that's where you know, you guys can do, you can count on one another. You talk to one another. And that was something that really went on.
Yeah, that was a fantastic year. 125 wins for the whole season.
Right.
I wanted to ask you. I see your a guitar collection behind you.
Yes.
You had an interesting story about the '98 season. You were in touch with a guitar legend. That's part of your '98 like secret sauce. Tell us about that.
Well, I became friends with Eddie Van Halen, and so it was, yeah, one of the greatest ever. So Eddie and I became friends. I remember I went up to LA for the MTV Rock and Jock, and I ended up calling Eddie. Went over to his house. He was just him and Valerie were just building a pool and everything in their backyard. But before they did it, I started throwing BP to Wolfie. And when he was just a little bitty guy. And so we just kind of had that bond. And then, so in '98, you know, I called him every day. I called him for some reason the day I was pitching early in the season, and I ended up winning. So I called him again. So it became a trend. It was a superstition because I was a very superstitious guy. And so I had to call him every start. And I remember one time I didn't call him. He called me and he's like, dude, what are you doing? You're pitching today. He goes, we got to keep this mojo working. So it did work out. It worked out great. And so when they came in to play at Jones Beach in New York, went to the show, hung out with all the guys. But yeah, it was just a great relationship. So hopefully I turned Eddie into a Yankee fan.
Excellent. Did you ever play with him? Like just briefly ever?
Well, he had a room upstairs, and he had these, like, not like I have behind me with the guitars on the wall. He had them in cases. It looked like they were just stacked on top of each other. He had hundreds of guitars, and in this room he had this nasty old rug, candle burning in the middle, and that's where he would write and play his songs. And he threw a sheet at me, and he had this song, and he goes, sing it, because he had the words to it. He goes, you sing, I'll play. And I said, Eddie, I can't sing. He goes, then get out of my house. I said, I'll sing. So I started singing this song while he played and all that. But I tried playing guitar, and I'm a lefty, and he didn't have any. So that was my out. So I'll just sing. So I actually did get to sing a song while he played. So that was pretty cool.
What song?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It was one of the new ones that he was writing.
All right. I'm just saying, on the next reunion tour, I want to see you in spandex with the David Lee Roth hair. You're leaping around. That'd be a hoot.
That ain't gonna happen, bro.
All right.
That ain't gonna happen. I'll put a wig on. I'm a Sammy
David,
Hagar fan anyway, so it's
oh
all
my
right.
God. Great stories. David, always a pleasure talking with you. Best of luck. Ride this out with your family, and
Thank you.
we'll see you on the other side. Everything will be good. David, always a pleasure.
Awesome.
Take care, man.
Brian, thank you very much. Appreciate it.